Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Soul Focused Radio. This is your host, Martin Friedman, and Martin Teddy Bear Moses Friedman, and I'm extremely excited to be joined once again by our CEO, Ragivah Mahdi. What's happening, Ragivah Mahdi?
Everything is great, and I'm excited about being able to be on the podcast again. Thank you for having me, Teddy Bear, and ready to get at some things today.
Yes, sir. Let's do that. And just to share with folks that we're making our foray into video. So, we're excited about that. You'll see it. We'll be very professional.
Yes.
I try to be as professional as possible today. Well, first of all, just how's things going for you? How's everything? And we'll jump in the conversation in just a minute, but just do a quick check-in. What's going on for you?
Well, just recently, my oldest daughter's grandmother passed, right? She transitioned, and I went down to New Orleans to support my daughter. Mm-hmm. And, it was, bittersweet, but she lived 93 years. Mm-hmm. She had 13 children, children. And, her husband, which was a famous musician called, Doc Paulin. His name, Doc Paulin. He's played with Louis Armstrong and everything. Mm. And he lived to be 100. So but he passed before her. But they raised 13 children, man. Wow. And it's unreal when you think about it. Very strong, passionate woman, but very sweet and kind. And I'm glad I got a chance to support my daughter in her grandmother's passing. Yeah.
I'm glad you did too. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That must have been quite the homegoing, right? Quite the
it was. They had second line, being in New Orleans, they did second line coming out of the church. And, I learned things about her that I didn't know, because when me and Naja's mother was together, way back then, she always treated me real nice and everything. But there's a lot of things I didn't know about her that they told, like, stories about her. And it was just hilarious, to know that side of her. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's always a great thing. I always think a lot about who does funerals and passing really well. New Orleans does it really well.
Yes.
It's one of the things I love about my culture. I think we do, as Jewish people, we have these great rituals that really, honor both the person that passed and also the people that are still here. Yes. And I think something that a heritage we share in common in that way.
Her name, what I didn't know her full name, right? Her full maiden name was Betty White.
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious.
When they said that, I was like, who are they talking about? And I was like, I looked at Betty White, because everybody had a nickname they had for, all the grandchildren and children would call her different names because she was so loved by so many people. Everybody knew her as a gumbo lady, right? But I didn't know her name was Betty White. When they kept saying Betty White, I was like, who are they talking about, Betty White? I thought I was at the wrong funeral at first, right?
That is hilarious. That is too funny. All right. Well, everything's good here. Just so you know, saw my first alligator, which from a safe distance. I think I sent you a picture. But, that was an important moment for me because I've been waiting to see that, now the weather's warmer, they're going to start coming out. I'm going to, keep my distance. But, they say as what's that?
Pythons too in Florida. They
I haven't seen the pythons yet. Yeah, no, but I haven't gotten anywhere around the pythons yet. But I was excited. They say, like, as a spirit animal, they say that alligators represent, because they haven't really changed since dinosaur times.
Wow.
They say they represent ancient wisdom. Wow. So when you see a dinosaur,
don't get too close to that wisdom.
Presence. No, I know. Yeah, I promise.
Like, make it up close to this wisdom. Don't take it too far. You know what I'm saying?
No, we're gonna maintain a nice spiritual. I have a spiritual closeness and a physical distance. How's that?
Yeah,
but otherwise,
good policy.
Otherwise, just getting into just loving life here, and the fact that I can just go decompress at the ocean, and just really enjoying life right now. So yeah, let's get into our topic for today, Ragivah Mahdi. What we decided we wanted to talk about today was reprogramming our minds, reprogramming our subconscious mind. And I guess, subconscious mind, right? And I guess the first question is, what does that mean? What does it mean to reprogram your subconscious mind? Can a subconscious mind be reprogrammed? Maybe two questions at once.
Yeah, I think first we should probably like entertain the idea of what people think the subconscious mind is. You know, because throughout my life, when I was younger, the concept of subconscious mind wasn't even talked about. To be honest with you, it's almost like a new phenomenon. Everybody's talking about the subconscious mind, and so it begs for further inquiry. So what do you see as the subconscious mind?
Well, for me, and really spending a lot of the last few years really learning about the subconscious mind because, first of all, I think I had to differentiate subconscious from unconscious, right? And I think I often use the two words interchangeable. And now my understanding is that the unconscious is when you're like at 100% not in your conscious thinking, and the subconscious is what's always kind of like it's the program that's playing sort of below your conscious thoughts. So coming to understand now that our subconscious mind is 95 to 98% of all of our thought processes, that it's everything. It's everything that's happening right now. The millions of things, like in order for my hands to move, my eyes to blink, in addition to the words that I'm thinking of, being able to hold myself upright while I sit in this chair. Those are all aspects of my subconscious mind. And so I kind of think of it as what's playing behind, all of the stuff. Like if you think of a computer, all the stuff that's going on in order for you to see what you see on the screen, which is just a tiny percentage. So that's in many ways how I'm thinking about it right now.
Yeah, I think that your concept of it and view of it is pretty on. I would say to make it very simple is that your subconscious mind is your spiritual memory bank. So it's a memory bank, right? Because it is filled with everything you've experienced, everything you've heard, observed, been through, patterns, belief patterns, habits. All of that forms your subconscious mind. So it serves as a memory bank, right? And I think it's different when we think about it as a memory bank versus just the idea of the unconscious part of our mind, because there's so much. That's why it's 95 to 85%, because so much of our memory bank is unconscious, right? So there's parts of our memory bank that we are conscious of, and that is conscious mind, right? But the part of our memory bank we are unconscious of is subconscious. And there is so much vast stuff. And I think that the thing that we can distinguish is that there are certain parts of your subconscious mind, memory bank, that's calling for you to transform it. And I think that's the thing that we have to pay most attention to. What aspect of our subconscious programming, as some would say, needs to be, as people would say, reprogrammed, but I would say repurposed, because it takes longer to reprogram than to repurpose, right?
And say what you mean by that. So, first of all, just what's the difference? What's the difference between repurposing and reprogramming in your mind?
The idea of reprogramming is like, teaching your mind a new trick, right? You're going to go inside and you're going to start repeating stuff. You're going to repeat stuff that counters the program that you're trying to get rid of. Like if you believe that you're not good enough and you want to reprogram that subconsciously, then you would, you say stuff to yourself like, before you go to bed, I'm worthy, et cetera, et cetera. And these things are repeated often, because repetition is a thing that really helps to quote unquote reprogram. But the process is speeded up faster when you could repurpose that belief, repurpose that habit. Because scientists would tell us that you can't break a habit, right? But you could reprogram or quote unquote repurpose the habit. And repurpose the habit is to create a better purpose for it than the one that currently exists. It's like this. We have two minds, and a memory bank. So we got two minds and a memory bank. First mind, second mind, memory bank. All right. If you could just imagine that on a piece of paper, and one side is first mind, then the second mind, and then below is memory bank. And memory bank is filled up when you're in your mother's womb. Your memory bank is being filled up by first mind, and then at some point in that process too, it starts being filled up second mind. And we're gonna think it's important to have a distinction between first mind and second mind. First mind is soul. What we refer to as soul is really our first mind. In other words, is our first choice, right? Our first choice, our original self, who we decided to come into this world, or who we chose to come into this world to be, who we committed to being, who we committed to growing, who we committed to creating from, and who we committed to creating and contributing, to make a contribution in the world from. All that's been programmed been propagated in our bodies. In every cell of our bodies, our soul propagated it while we were in our mother's womb developing. And then at a certain point in time, second mind started developing, and the second mind is programming or propagation of information coming from the outside world. Okay. That later becomes what we call ego. And they are functioning under two different laws, which is why I say repurpose versus reprogram, because reprogram says without saying it that something is wrong. Repurpose says, something can still be used. Nothing's wrong. Something can be used differently than it has been used before. So first mind is governed by a different law than second mind. So the first mind, which is soul, is governed by this law. All is to be used. Nothing is to be wasted. That's the guiding force of first mind. Soul does not see wrong or right. Soul sees effectiveness, ineffectiveness. How can I use this better? How can I get the most out of this? It's geared toward making sure nothing gets wasted, because waste is really the only enemy in the universe. If there is an enemy, it is waste, right? So, but the second mind is the world decides what's to be used, and the world decides what's to be wasted. That is the law that governs the second mind, which is problematic because then it creates a lot of waste. So our ego produces a lot of waste. Pertinent weight that our ego creates is us. It wastes us because it starts deciding that selecting certain parts of ourselves that we think others will accept, right? And it denies or rejects certain parts of ourselves that we think others will reject. So it begins to waste parts of the self, whereas soul is looking to maximize the self in everything. So soul would take a repurposing approach. Ego would take a reprogramming approach. You can see the difference?
I do.
So ego says something is wrong here. And soul says, wait a minute, there's something to be used in every experience. Let's not waste anything. Let's repurpose it so we can get the maximum usage out of what we went through. Does that make sense?
Give us it does. I want to go a little bit deeper into it. Give us an example of what does that waste look like? So when I think about it, some things that came to my mind would be like wasted potential, waste of time, waste of talent, and that's because we create that waste because we get so caught up in the external identifiers, the external messages that the ego has given us, right?
Right.
Is that what you mean when you talk about waste?
Right. Because you think about the overall, like what Carl Jung said about what ego is, and then you get a better sense of. So he says the world will ask you who you are, and if you say to the world you don't know, then the world will tell you who you are, and that becomes your ego. So imagine the waste is everything that you try to become that's not in alignment with who you really are. Right. So it's trying to satisfy other people. And what ends up happening to you as a result of trying to satisfy other people, you suppress aspects of yourself to satisfy them. Right. So your parents, they want you to be a doctor. And inside your soul, the will of your soul, which wants you to maximize the full potential of who you are, wants you and already has chosen you to be something else, right? But you disobey the call of your soul to please your parents. You become a doctor, and you're the most unhappiest doctor they ever met on the planet. Why? Because your life is not in alignment. What's in your soul is not in alignment with what's in your second mind. Because ego really we can master our ego by getting our ego to be in alignment with our soul. That's the true soulmate, right? But most of us never do. So our ego, and then whatever our ego says we have to be, we be, even though it goes against what we are. So cognitive dissonance is an indicator of waste, right? The biggest parts of waste is in our relationships, So we have experiences, and then we don't understand the experiences, and then we have those experiences again and again and again, and we don't understand why we keep reproducing them. So human relationship waste is like the biggest waste. Think about all the people that we've wasted that have come into our lives, that we have not created what we could have created with them. That the potential of our relationships with people is truly underappreciated because we haven't understood the potential of our relationship with ourselves.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you're making me think of a few things. And one of them is, my wife and I, when we've been pretty good about not getting into a lot of old repetitive arguments. Sometimes we do. By the way, you obviously know my wife well, and she says hi. I forgot to tell you that.
I'll tell her I said hello.
Felicia says what's up. But I've noticed that lately when we do get into these arguments that are repetitive, that both of us kind of know are coming from other places. Well, two things. One, it feels kind of indulgent. Like it's starting to feel sort of indulgent to me. Like, wow, I'm indulging this, going back and having the same argument that we've had, and bringing up all this old stuff. But the other thing is almost inevitably one of us will say, this feels like such a waste. Wow. Like we could be creating this thing together. We, her and I have done a couple of Facebook Lives together. We could be doing a Facebook Live together. We could be writing our story together. There's so much we could do, but instead we're replaying the same thing over and over. That feels like a good example of what you're talking about.
Yeah, because I think about myself and a lot of my clients that I work with. I don't like to call them clients, but people who have joined me on the journey. Like why a person would choose the same kind of person in a relationship, romantic relationship, and it ends up breaking up at around the same point and period all the time. That's waste, because what you're doing is you are calling another person into your life, but you're not maximizing the full potential of yourself, neither of them. So a lot goes wasted. And what goes wasted is the fact that these things keep happening. You keep attracting the same guy, or you keep attracting the same kind of woman, because there's a force in your life that is seeking to fulfill the grand law of the universe, which governs the first mind. All is to be used, nothing is to be wasted. So these experiences repeat themselves to give you an opportunity to do what? To maximize the full potential of the lesson that is coming in the repetitiveness of this experience. But until you do, it's waste. And what happens with waste in your mind, the way waste functions in your mind, waste takes up space in your mind, and it prevents you from being able to process fast. So your processing is slower and slower. In other words, it takes longer for you to make a decision about stuff because you got all these doubts in your mind, this lack of clarity that has been developed as a result of all these experiences that you're now, you're second guessing yourself about. Like it's like people say, well, I can't trust people. I used to say it all the time. And I hear people say it all the time. I can't trust people. And until I realized something, it wasn't that I couldn't trust people. I couldn't trust myself with certain people. I couldn't trust myself in certain situations with people. Because at the end of the day, you're with yourself. And at the end of the day, you are going to be looking at what you didn't see, what you didn't process. Like when you break up with somebody, you're like, why I didn't see that coming? You start playing back in your head what transpired that brought you to there. And so what you start doing is you really start second guessing yourself. So it's not really people that you don't trust. It's yourself in certain situations with people. Right. And if you don't see that, then what happens is you don't repurpose the waste. You don't take advantage of this repetitive lesson that the teacher's been teaching you that you keep missing because you keep looking at other people and not at yourself.
Yeah, I think that's powerful. It makes a lot of sense. And so when we don't trust ourselves with other people, what's the root of that? It's fear? I guess I want to understand that a little bit more. Why are we not trusting ourselves with other people? What's that coming from?
Because it's a place in our subconscious where we have repetitive behavior happening that we don't understand. And so we believe that if I, get around certain people, like for me, it was being around certain women that I was highly attracted to, right? That I had a certain propensity or tendency to fall hard for women, very attractive women to me, right? And so I didn't trust myself with very attractive women that I saw, because that's when we say attractive and beautiful, we're talking about eyes in the eyes of the beholder. So what the women that I would deem to be highly attractive, I was like, I didn't trust myself because I saw myself periodically and habitually make bad decisions in relationship to that. So I would say I can't trust them, but I was really saying I couldn't trust myself with them because I didn't understand why I kept doing the same thing that I didn't want to do. Right. So that's what we always, I think that's the place we start if we're going to reprogram, quote unquote, quote unquote reprogram, but I say repurpose our subconscious mind. It's to start in that place where you keep producing outcomes that you don't like and you don't understand why you keep reproducing them. Right. That's what the subconscious is calling for. It says, look, I have all these memories here and all of them are waiting for you to help you maximize the full potential of your life. But you can't use them all at one time. But they come up first as in, what aspect of your life are you not maximizing, right? What aspect of your life are you producing the most waste, where you feel the most unhappy, dissatisfied, disappointed, et cetera, et cetera. This is the area where you have the greatest amount of leverage for repurposing your subconscious mind, because you're going to need leverage, not in a way of where you're looking to hurt yourself, but leverage in terms of something to motivate and inspire yourself to bring about the repurposing.
So like warning signs would be, as you're talking, I'm thinking about anytime you hear yourself saying something like, I don't know why I always,
yes, ...
right?
Why does this
Or
keep
here
happening
I
to
am
me?
again. I can't believe I'm back here again, right?
Exactly.
I've said that a few times, like I cannot believe we're back here again having this same conversation. And what I hear you saying is that's because there's something that we still haven't not just reprogrammed, but repurposed. We have not taken whatever that is and moved it into something else. I had an example about repurposing. I want to see if this is in alignment with what you're saying. When I was a kid, I was in theater. I really liked theater a lot. I always thought I would be an actor. That's what I thought I would do. And I was probably about 10 or 11 years old. And I was I had a pretty big role in the play Rumpelstiltskin. I wasn't Rumpelstiltskin, but I had like the next most lines. There was a character named Toby. I think they wrote it in. I don't think I've ever heard of Toby before or since, from Rumpelstiltskin. But the night before the first performance, and people paid to come see us, right? It was professional children's theater. And the night before the first performance, I threw up, which is a pretty classic thing to do, right? Out of nerves. And I remember I think it was either the director or the guy that was playing Rumpelstiltskin, who was older than me, said, what you're feeling right now is what we call nervous energy. And he said, what I want you to do is I want you to think about all that nervous energy that you're feeling. And I want you to transfer it into performance energy. So all that energy that you felt right before you threw up because you were so nervous, take that same energy and put it behind everything you say and do as soon as you get out on stage, right before you get out on stage, and say, so the energy didn't go anywhere, right? That's what it feels like. Is that a good example of repurposing?
Perfect example. Because it longs for us to look at the whole idea of, like, for example, of garbage differently. Because the ego has this thing where we are so wasteful. We have so much garbage in our life, and it manifests as, like I said, disappointment, heartache, all that stuff, that repetitive stuff. That's garbage. When the garbage collectors come to pick up your trash, your waste, and they remove it from your home or removing it from in front of your home, you think it's gone. But
That's
it's
right.
not. It's not. It's actually floating on barges up and down the sea.
Right. That's right.
Now think about that for a
Yeah.
second.
Yeah.
It's floating on barges, floating up and down the sea, and before too long, it's going to run out of places to go.
That's right.
And we are stockpiling garbage.
That's right.
And it is indicative of the way we live. We are so egotistically based society that what we have become great at is stockpiling garbage. We waste more people than we do any other commodity on the planet. We have a society that's geared toward and runs off of the idea of how many people can we waste today. Right? We have moved so far away from seeing just how the potential in every human being and how easy it could be if we taught people to live by different principles from childhood up, right? So like, because everything is to be used, nothing is to be wasted for the soul perspective.
Right.
Soul perspective also adopts the concept of everything is working in my favor, which is a repurposing, recycling state of mind. So you train your mind, you train your ego to look at the reasons why this could be working for you. And you start training your mind to do that, then your mind develops the muscle to not go out into the world to find waste or to come up with problems, which is waste, but to find a way to solve problems. So I have this thing where I trained my ego, my second mind. I took it to the dojo, and mastered my ego. And I said, look, do not go out into the world and come back and point out to me what's not working. I don't want to hear it. I'm not concerned with it at all. It's not going to get any attention from me. I want you to go out into the world and come back and show me how this is going to work for us, how this is going to work for me, how I'm going to turn this around. And I taught my mind to do that. Now, at the beginning, I didn't know how it was working for me, but I made it a point. I made a point to train my mind to do it. And once I trained my mind to do it, my mind got good at it and better at it, better at it, better at it. So now anything that happens, the first thing my mind is doing, how could this be working for us? You get what I'm saying? And that's a part of repurposing that leads to a whole different shift in perspective that's driving how I use the memory bank. Because the memory bank is full of resources. We realize we have things in our memory bank that dates all the way back to the first human being ever existed on this planet.
Right.
So think about that for a minute. We have access to an unlimited resource base, but we can't get to it as long as we are wasting. And the waste, because the waste ends up being nothing but distractions that we keep, becoming distracted by, rather than looking to see what can we make out of this waste. What can we make out of this? What beautiful thing can we create? What we could compost, like you do compost, right? And it becomes fertilizer, et cetera, et cetera. But beginning to think about all the things in our life that we have once deemed as being a mistake, once deemed as not good, I'm not good enough, and all this stuff. But what is the real thing that your life, the force in your life, has been trying to teach you? What is the real lesson that soul has been trying to get you to see, right? Because soul loves you. Your soul loves you, right? And matter of fact, it chose to come into this world for the simple fact of being you. I mean, the soul, rises and shines for you. Ain't that beautiful?
It is. It is beautiful. And it's like, I always love how much joy you take when you say stuff like that, right? Because it's a joyful idea. And then I just think about, and this is probably part of my ego programming too, but then I think about all the ways that we don't honor that, on a day-to-day basis. We're not honoring that that's what our soul is here to do. And it's a constant process for many of us to wake up and remember that, just to remember that that's what we're really here for, and not all this external distraction about what won't work and what can't work all the time.
And the reason why that is because most of us have never taken our ego to the dojo and trained it and mastered it, right? So the ego dojo is like where people really need to bring their ego to learn how to master it, because it's not going to happen by osmosis. There's too much of a strong force in the world that's a current, like a current in the water that's moving swiftly toward an outcome that has you to produce as much waste, because this world is really based in waste. You know, if you just look, all you gotta do is look around and see how much waste we produce. I'm not talking about just garbage. I'm talking about in terms of relationships and people, children, you know, systems and institutions. Look at what our education system is doing. We're wasting kids. Look what our healthcare system is doing. We're not curing diseases. We just prolong them. We feed off waste. You know, the predators feed on waste. Right. And so, you know, and as long as we are, you know, stockpiling waste, the predators are in charge. You know, but you could even repurpose the predators. You could repurpose and create a higher law that allows you to function above the predators. Because when you start producing a life that is efficient, very little waste, the whole entire law of ecology, which governs the universe too, then becomes your backer. It becomes your financer, right? Spiritual financer. And when that becomes your spiritual financer, then what happens is you are now functioning at a higher spiritual level, a higher spiritual dimension than maybe the second dimension or the lower level, the third dimension. You can rise up into the fourth and the fifth dimension. And in those dimensions, there's completely different laws that govern you. Like, so you could be living in this world, walking around with other people and literally be in another dimension, experiencing something completely different from everybody else, because we all are. And, you know, you could do stuff that everybody like asking and wondering, how could you do that? And nothing ever happens, right? And people don't understand why it is, because you're not functioning on the same dimension as someone else is functioning on.
And what you're saying is that those limitations are coming from us. Like, it feels like they're coming externally. And I think, you know, what I'd like to do is probably maybe close out this episode in just a minute and start a new one and talk maybe specifically around race. Like, what does it look like to repurpose our mind around race and racism? Because what I hear you saying is that the external forces are real and they're strong, right?
Right.
And they've got us by the ego, if you will, right? They got us by the ego.
I love the way you say that. They got us by the ego.
Yeah, and a tight grip on it, right?
Yes.
And they're like just controlling us, moving us around because they got us by the ego. And I hear you saying that the answer to that is doubling down on our soul. This, you know, understanding that we're capable of operating at a level that most of us don't even understand, would have a hard time even comprehending about what we're capable of. And we're wasting so much because we're allowing that external ideas to define us. But we can take control, though. We're the ones that can change it, because the external forces aren't going to change it.
That's the only way to change it. You know, I remember something that I heard Napoleon Hill say, and I often refers to it. He said that, you know, you have to take possession of your mind and direct it to an end of your own choosing. He wasn't talking about your first mind, because your first mind is already moving in a direction that is favorable to you. He was talking about your second mind. In other words, he was saying you have to take possession of your ego and direct your ego in the place that is, you know, for your own best interest. Basically, that's what he's saying, right? So to do that, you have to master your ego. There's no way to do it unless you take your ego to the dojo, right? You got to master your ego. Your ego must know the way of your soul. If not, these institutions and systems will continue to master you, because why? They have you by your ego. They got you by your ego. And
that's how they got us.
I mean, that you know, you got to coin that phrase, Brother Moses. They got you. They got you by your ego. They got you by your ego.
We're coining it right now.
Yeah, because if you don't take your ego back, they're gonna always have you by the ego.
Yeah.
You know, you're gonna always want to please them. You're gonna always want to follow the rules of the world. You're gonna always want to, you know, to live up to the expectations of people that don't give a damn about you. Right? Whereas your soul cares about you deeply, knows who you are, and is, you know, ready and always willing to bring you into the dimensions of heaven while you live. so you could be in harmony with yourself and not in conflict with yourself. Because when they got you by the ego, that means you're in conflict with yourself. Now, when you're in conflict with yourself, that means you are living a wasteful life. You're producing 50% waste.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say you're living, conflict is like, let's say split your half and half. Some people are more in conflict than anything else. So let's say some people are 80-20, 80% in conflict, 20% in harmony. Even if you're 50% in conflict and 50% in harmony, you are producing 50% of waste.
That's wild.
50% of your resources, your intelligence, your gifts, your talents, your genius, your originality, all those things that make you so unique, you are wasting them. Because there's a part of yourself that's got you by the ego that's more concerned what other people think about you than what your soul thinks and sees in yourself.
That's a great way to segue us into the next part, because we're going to talk about that more specifically, and we're going to really hone in on race, all oppressions, but we're going to hone in on race a little bit and how that's happening right now, how through race and racism, this world has us by the ego, and how we're going to step up and be more equal to ourselves and stop wasting so much. So let's take a break here. Let's just in case people don't come back on the second one, let's thank everybody for listening.
Yes,
we know you're coming back, but just in case, check us out at soulfocused.com and listen to our podcasts on Spotify and Apple. And we have so many great things now, Mahdi, on our website. We have online courses now, and we're adding more every day. We have so many different offerings. We have a women of color offering that's being rolled out now. We have healing for whiteness from white folks that's about to be rolled out. So we just have exciting things happening. So come check us out.
Repurposing.
Absolutely. We love everyone that's listening on this journey with us. We thank you. We ask you to stay safe, stay well, and most importantly, stay soul focused.
Yes, sir.